Birds versus Boys draft profile. Aidan, it is time to talk about one of our favorite players in this draft, one of the most electric players in this draft, one of the players that has probably the most question marks around him. That's why he's all around such an intriguing prospect in this draft. It is Ohio State wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who could go anywhere from the top 10 to some are saying late in the first round. Aidan, I know you love him. I know you wouldn't mind him in Midnight Green or Kelly Green. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, like you said, this is going to be one of the most interesting ones to do, and not just because we are so adapt to falling in love with wide receivers, but we're a recency bias society, and he did not play this last season. He got hurt in the first game against Notre Dame and did not come back. The last time we did see him, he was putting on an absolute show in the Rose Bowl, putting up video game numbers. So you have that, and then all of a sudden you have him who we haven't seen him actually play regular football for about a year now. So that's what makes him so interesting. That's probably why there's that jump from he's the first wide receiver off the board in the top 10 picks to he's not even in the first round or late first round and stuff like that. Regardless, he'll be a fun one to watch and kind of just go through the details of everything that he can do for a football team.
So he is 6'1", 195 pounds, did not run the 40-yard dash at the combine, had a 35-inch vertical and a 10.5-inch broad jump, and his short shuttle was 3.93. Now, some people have him as wide receiver 1. Some people have him as low as wide receiver 3. I've seen this is not as loaded of a wide receiving draft core as we've seen in the last, let's say, 3-4 years, right? There's a lot more small, shifty type guys like Zay Flowers in this draft. But I believe that he is the true wide receiver number 1. There's probably only one like true receiver. That's the Quentin Johnson from TCU. Mm-hmm. But Jaxon Smith can do so many different things, right? He has a precision when it comes to route running. He has great body control, and something that you need in this day and age in the NFL as a wide receiver is his hands and ball skills are unmatched. He will go up and get the ball. But is he explosive enough? I think that's some of the questions of why he may drop outside the top 10.
Yeah, so you make a great point. This is why I don't think he's going to last to the end of the first round, and he'll be the first wide receiver off the board. And that's a perfect example right there. He can play in the slot. He's shifty. He's slippery. On that play right there, he catches the ball at midfield, and they're down to the 30 because he breaks 2 tackles on a cutback. He's got great footwork. Like the perfect example right here. And I know this is Rutgers, so it doesn't count too much, but just kind of that one step cut. All right, he's gone. And you're right. He doesn't have that like breakaway speed. He's not that speedboat, but it's just like the efficiency of how he gets himself open. It's smooth. And I think coaches fall in love with that, where he comes from a school where you know they produce good wide receivers. You know he can make plays after the catch. You know he can play in the slot. And you know you can trust his footwork. I think when you bring in a guy and you can already trust certain aspects of his game, coaches fall in love quicker, and that brings you off the draft board quicker. We're going to talk about Nolan Smith in another video. He's the same way. It's like, yeah, like in another draft, would he be one of the first guys off the board? No. But in a draft like this, somebody's going to fall in love with him early. And I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba was in this same category. You can see it on these plays right here, where none of these are 50-yard bombs. These are him just getting himself open and just solid first down after first down. Maybe like a Keenan Allen. Is that fair?
Yeah, I've also seen him comp to Robert Woods also. But the thing about him that, yes, it's very easy to fall in love with his shiftiness, his slot play. I think the thing that some teams aren't going to love is he needs work when it comes to his play on the outside, right? I think in the beginning of his career, he's definitely going to be specifically a slot player, but for some teams and some offenses and some schemes, that's perfect. I think the Eagles, I think he would be a fit there. He would be an upgrade over Quez Watkins. The Cowboys, if he dropped to 26, I feel like you almost have to take him. It's sort of not as high as CeeDee Lamb when he fell to them, but they like guys that can be interchangeable. Outside, inside, you see CeeDee play outside, you see CeeDee play in the slot. They don't like guys that are quote unquote pigeonholed so much. But an offense like the Philadelphia Eagles sitting at 10, I think he's a very realistic option. You just sign your quarterback to arguably one of the smartest and highest paid quarterback contracts of all time. Continue to put weapons around him.
I was not laughing at you, by the way. He put one of the Nebraska corners just on his ass, like it was a James Harden crossover, but running a route. So that's why I was laughing. Just to, just to be fair, I'll just get my Eagles take out of the way early. Again, I'm biased about wide receivers, but there's been so much talk about Bijan Robinson to the Eagles at 10, and the whole kind of concept behind this is, who cares that he's a running back? He's just an offensive weapon. He's a good one. You know he'll be a good one. So just plug him into an already good offense and it'll help them. Well, then why aren't we talking about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who the same logic applies? He'll be a great offensive weapon in an already good offense. You can plug him into the slot and it'll improve an already Super Bowl caliber offense. Like, I just don't get. I'm not saying that the Eagles have to take Jaxon Smith-Njigba at 10, but if we're going to talk about Bijan Robinson just because he's an offensive weapon, why aren't we talking about JSN?
I mean, it obviously depends on who's there, right? If a guy like Jalen Carter falls to 10 and Jaxon Smith-Njigba's there, that's a hard decision to make. And I think you might go the defensive lineman there. But a wide receiver core of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba with Dallas Goedert playing tight end, that's a hell of a day for any defense to have to put up with. So adding great players and adding a great player like him at 10, I don't think there is a problem with that at all. It would all just depend on who was passed up. I honestly don't think he should go any lower than 15, 16 in this draft. I don't think there's any way he drops to 26 or even in a range of, like, let's say 20, 21, 22, where the Cowboys might think of jumping up, but they're not going to jump up for him. I don't think the pipe dream of him possibly wearing a star in his helmet has any possibility of realm in reality.
Does the hamstring worry you at all? The fact
Yes.
that he got hurt and he didn't really ever come back?
Yes. I mean, not only does just the injury, but also the fact that he had such, I could say, limited experience in college. I mean, if we had one more year, I think he's a bona fide top 10 pick. But I think that's the only question, right? Some of these guys that had very limited career success, but like you said, it's kind of like a double whammy with the recency bias, right? We're recency bias of not seeing him recently, but at the same time, thinking back to the most recent game that he really played in was unbelievable. So it's a double-edged sword.
The last time you saw him, he looked awesome, but it's been a long time since you saw him. So where do you fall? Yep. Are you worried that are you worried that you haven't seen him in a year, or are you excited because the last time you saw him, no one could cover him?
No, I think that depends on where, right? And the value. Now, if I'm a team like the Eagles sitting at 10, there's going to be a multitude of guys that they could pick that have true first grade value on them, or first round grade value on them. Where the Cowboys at 26, if he's sitting there, there's not going to be many true first round grades on guys. And he would probably be one of maybe two, if not the only one. So you would have to take him in that situation.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he falls to 26, I feel like you're really happy with yourself here. And we've got into the Rose Bowl game that we've been alluding to. There's no one really in his vicinity when he's catching this football,
unbelievable,
which is a great sign. And just the broken tackles thing, to me, it's not a broken tackle in terms of just like, oh, I'm just stronger than this 19-year-old kid. He's just so elusive and the footwork's so good. It gets himself open and it gets extra yards for the team. So again, I really think coaches will fall in love with that aspect where it's like, yeah, this guy can catch it on a slant and all of a sudden it's 25 yards just because he's elusive. I think a lot of coaches, especially in this day and age, will really, really enjoy that.
Now talk to me here before we get out of here. Is there another, besides the Eagles, is there another team or quarterback that you think he would fit super well with?
I joked about the Packers just because I think it would be hilarious if they went wide receiver in the first round after not going wide receivers
Yep.
infamously for Aaron Rodgers. I think the Chargers, I know I mentioned Keenan Allen, but at some point they're going to move on from him. So I could see that as well. But yeah, I think there's a good amount of teams. Like I said, if he falls to 26 for the Cowboys, I think you should pull the trigger just because I think he'd be the best player on the board at that time. So I think there's a good amount of teams who I could see going after him and just being like, he's the best offensive weapon available. Let's just do it. Like I feel like it's easy to talk your front office into. It's like, yeah, this kid could be awesome. He could be the best offensive talent in the draft, non-quarterback. Let's do it.
I would love to see him with Justin Jefferson, but I don't want to see him in that ugly purple. I
That's
would
true.
love to see a team like Cincinnati somehow jump up from 28 to get him. Can you imagine him with Jamar Chase and
Unbelievable.
Joe Burrow in that? That would be a hell of a duo. Actually, a hell of a trio.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I think our friends up in New York, the New York Giants, would be another good one. I just think wide receiver wise might be tough for them, just because they have so many other holes to fill. I think they're going to probably be looking offensive line and honestly defensive line as well, even though
Yep.
they've got Dexter Lawrence, everybody like that. But I just think Kenny Galladay aside, I know that was a big disaster and they're trying to recover and kind of plug somebody in for that. Jaxon Smith-Njigba would be great, but I think they have other holes that they probably want to fill. So that'd be another one too. That'd be really unfortunate for us if we have to play against this kid every year. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of suitors for him on draft day, and maybe that creates trade up possibilities. A guy last year, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Jameson Williams, who the Lions traded up to get him. Maybe we have another situation like that for Jaxon Smith-Njigba this year.
Well, wherever he lands, I think he was going to be a superstar in this league, whether it be right away or whether it be a year or two down the line if he gets past the injury, which I think he will be fine. So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening on our Jaxon Smith-Njigba draft breakdown. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can check out all of the players we are profiling: Michael Mayer, Jalen Carter, all the top prospects. And then we will be doing a live stream during the first round of the NFL draft. You don't want to miss that. Thanks for tuning in.